In this article, we'll present a short, humorous, yet thoroughly scientific theory that can help you justify yourself when laziness gets the better of you. In physics, there's a thermodynamic quantity called entropy. Its scientific value determines the degree of irreversible energy dissipation. In other cases, it can also determine the probability of a macroscopic state occurring. However, in everyday life, it's easier to understand entropy as a measure of a system's disorder. The less order a system's elements exhibit, the higher the entropy. Here, let's make a quick clarifying remark about what order is. This is crucial because a situation where something is evenly distributed across the available space can be called disorder or chaos. For example, if we're talking about trash evenly scattered on the floor of a room. But a similar situation could also be called order. For example, if we're talking about a high-quality, uniformly painted wall. But it's a matter of personal preference and associations. However, for the purposes of this article, we'll agree that, like all physicists and other scientists, we'll understand order to mean the presence of some pronounced structure in a system. For example, the existence of specific objects at specific points in space. And disorder to mean the uniform distribution of all types of matter in space. In this case, entropy is a measure of disorder. Currently, the universe is relatively ordered. We have a multitude of cosmic bodies, each with its own shape, size, and properties, all located in specific locations. Thus, our system possesses a certain structure. But, unfortunately, science has unequivocally proven that entropy in closed thermodynamic systems can only increase or remain constant. Thus, any system tends toward disorder, that is, toward the uniform distribution of all available matter across the available space. This statement may be violated locally. That is, in certain regions of space, some of the elements making up the system may strive for order, but the entire closed system always strives for disorder or maintains the level of disorder it has achieved. In other words, if there is a slight increase in order somewhere, disorder elsewhere increases even more. So, if we apply the law of non-decreasing entropy disorder to the entire universe, it follows that one day, all matter should be uniformly distributed throughout the universe. At this point, no isolated objects, such as stars or planets, will remain. All space will be filled absolutely uniformly with a homogeneous mush of various particles. And entropy or disorder will reach its ultimate maximum. The state is called the heat death of the universe. Estimates vary as to when it will occur. In any case, it is one of the most distant end-of-the-world scenarios. If the universe ultimately reaches this state, it will happen in many billions of years. Another important property of entropy is that it only increases if something happens. And conversely, if something happens, entropy necessarily increases. And if nothing happens, entropy at least remains constant. But since any increase in entropy, that is, disorder, brings us closer to the heat death of the universe, it follows that as long as nothing happens, this end, at least, is not approaching. And as soon as certain events begin to occur, the heat death of the universe inevitably approaches us in time. A person, of course, cannot do absolutely nothing. They must at least breathe, their heartbeat, and other processes in the body occur. However, if a person simply lies on the couch, entropy increases much more slowly than if they take up active work. This means that the heat death of the universe approaches more slowly if a person is idle than if they are working. This effect is, of course, very weak, and numerical estimates are again very difficult. However, in any case, the contribution of one person and their lifestyle to the onset of the heat death of the universe is measured in tiny fractions of a second. Considering that this event itself is billions of years away, it turns out that the relative influence of each person on this process is quite insignificant. Nevertheless, strictly speaking, from a scientific perspective, this effect is still present. Therefore, your laziness can be scientifically justified by the fact that you are striving to delay the heat death of the universe as much as possible. To be fair, it should be noted that the heat death of the universe is only a hypothesis, just one of several dozen possible scenarios for the development of events and how the end of the universe will ultimately occur. Many alternative theories do not even assume that